Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? The Saints were back on the practice field today, another day of fall camp, or training camp, excuse me. And I think it's going to be very interesting to watch this offensive line continue to develop. I mentioned Brooke Kirchhofer is going to be with us in hour number 3 for our camp report today. And if you go follow Brooke on Twitter, she's at Brooke Chesney. She posted a video. She tweeted a video today from camp of Trevor Penning getting into it with a teammate again, this time with JT Gray. And, y'all, I'm going to tell you, I love this about Trevor Penning. Yesterday I made the analogy that Trevor Penning is the 6'3", 330-pound Northern Iowa version, offensive line Northern Iowa version of Chauncey Garner-Johnson. He is a dude that is not afraid of anybody. He is going to get in your head. He is going to finish a block. He is the kind of guy that you hate to go against. Here was Dennis Allen after practice today talking about his rookie offensive tackle.
Look, it's a tough man's game played by tough people, and so I like that about him. I think he's improved since we had him in the spring. And, again, with all these guys, I don't want to get too high or too low on any of them right now. I want to just continue the evaluation process, but I like the direction he's headed.
I'm going to tell you, there is something to be said for immediately feeling like you belong. And that was another thing that Trevor Penning said at the Senior Bowl. Because at the Senior Bowl, he was getting into it with dudes. I mean, this has been a trend for him. He did it at the Senior Bowl because he went to the Senior Bowl kind of pissed off. I'm a dude that is from Northern Iowa, and I'm with all these dudes with famous helmets. There's the famous winged helmet from Michigan. There's Buckeyes from Ohio State. There's LSU in Alabama. And I got a little old Northern Iowa on my helmet. But I ain't taking no crap from anybody. And he started scuffling with dudes at the Senior Bowl, and that became a storyline that week. And it's carried over here now, even with his own teammates. It's that's a dude with a mean streak who feels like he's got something to prove. And it would be so easy to, dip your toe in the water as you're starting. To just sort of ease into camp. And I don't want to say try not to be noticed, but try not to mess up. He's doing the opposite. This is cannonball into the deep end for Trevor Penning right now. He is being authentically who he is as an offensive lineman, and I love it. Cesar Ruiz, who's really got a lot to prove this year as a former first-round pick. Here was Cesar Ruiz today talking about Trevor Penning.
I would describe him as like a pit bull, kind of. It's when you think he's done, he's not done. You know what I mean? He definitely has that finishing mentality that, you love in offensive lineman. That's what many are hoping to see from Ruiz as he goes into this year. For Cesar Ruiz, this is year 3. So you're really hoping that he takes that step forward. As for Ruiz, he is really an integral part of this offensive line for New Orleans. I don't want to undersell the importance of either James Hurst or Penning at left tackle. Clearly, you're replacing a perennial Pro Bowler, All-Pro in Teron Armstead, who has just been the anchor of that line when he's been healthy since he was drafted out of Pine Bluff. But Andrus Peat is your left guard, and he's been a solid guard for you and a pretty good rotational player. Ryan Ramczyk is arguably the best right tackle in football, and Eric McCoy has come into his own as one of the top centers in the NFL. So that leaves Ruiz as a former first-round pick with a lot to prove, who the Saints are going to have to make a decision if they're going to pick up his fifth-year option after this season. They're going to have to make a decision after year 3, do we pick up his fifth-year option? So, they're going to have to start thinking about if they're going to make that decision. So he's got a lot to prove this year, does Cesar Ruiz. And he talked about the offseason that he's had. Yeah, this offseason was definitely a good one. This is the first, I guess you say,
real, like, OTAs, off-season, stuff like that. Being able to get on the field with, Coach Marone and just work on things right away, in April, that was really important, and that really helps a lot.
Of course, Doug Marone, former offensive coordinator and NFL head coach, is the Saints offensive line coach. That is a massive, I don't want to say but twist on this whole conversation about developing that position. And it's not to be dismissive of anybody that was here prior, but you're talking about just a very different level of accomplishment and notoriety when you're talking about Doug Marone there as the Saints offensive line coach. And then, of course, they've also brought in Jari Evans. And there was this great video at practice over the weekend of Jari Evans working with Cesar Ruiz there on these lineman drills. Here's what Ruiz had to say about working with a future Hall of Famer.
Oh, there's a bunch of stuff, especially when I'm talking to Jari. It's like, hey, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about this? It's not one specific thing I gained from him. It's literally, hey, what do you do on these type of blocks? What do you feel comfortable? How did you do it when you were a player? You know what I'm saying? What do you think is a good technique on this? And, it's just tweaking those things and learn those things and, implement them into my game is just, it's just good. So I can't really just give like, hey, this and that, but it's a lot of different stuff,
Look, Cesar Ruiz has been much maligned, and I've probably defended him more than others, not because I think his play is defensible. I think the situation that he's been in isn't what he was drafted to do. Eric McCoy was drafted and was drafted as a guard, but played center out of necessity when Max Unger suddenly retired. And he was so good at center, they then drafted Cesar Ruiz, of course, because we learned shortly after the draft that they were getting rid of Larry Warford, and they had a need on the interior offensive line. So the plan clearly would have been Ruiz is your center, and you move McCoy back to guard. But Drew Brees comes back, and he didn't want to disrupt that battery. And McCoy was so good at center that he didn't want to disrupt that. So McCoy stays at center, Ruiz plays guard, and he's just not a guard, or hasn't been a guard. So he's learning that position as well. So part of me has looked at Ruiz and said, I'm willing to be patient, because he's in a position that he's not meant to play. He's learning it as he came into the NFL. There was the COVID year, of course. And of your entire offensive line, Ruiz was the only guy last year who was actually durable. He was the only guy who didn't miss time. So I'm not excusing Ruiz for the past 2 years. I'm just saying I'm willing to allow him the opportunity to show the organization he's improved and can be a very good starter in this league. Look, Andrews Pete wasn't drafted to be a guard. He played left tackle at Stanford, thought he'd try him at right tackle. Turns out he couldn't be a tackle in the NFL. He settled in nicely at guard and has been a swing guy. When you've had injuries, he's been able to play tackle. It's worked to where he's not what you drafted him to be, but he's been a good player. I think we might be able to say the same for Ruiz if he continues to develop. But this is a big opportunity for him. That offensive line is interesting for a lot of reasons. Ruiz with a lot to prove. The Saints are going to have to make a decision on the fifth-year option for Cesar Ruiz. And then, boy, you look at the battle at left tackle. Can Penning as a rookie win that job, or does Hurst hold him off? Do you see Penning play a rotational role? Just one of the many storylines that we're talking about as the Saints make it through this camp. But I'm going to tell you, so far, the early returns on Penning, I haven't even seen him play in a game, but I don't care. Because what you want from that guy, step from Northern Iowa to an NFL practice field, is to not be overwhelmed by that moment, to not be overwhelmed by that stage. And from Senior Bowl to then rookie minicamp to OTAs to minicamp to now training camp, Trevor Penning has looked like he is completely unafraid of taking this step and is ready to grab by the horns, and that's a phenomenal sight to see. Now he's got to go do it, but winning that battle, what do they say, on the 12-inch field between your ears? Like, that's huge, and he's on his way. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.